You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You're listening to us on CBS radio station 1580 AM in the Washington, D.C. area, or streaming on the web, WMCLive.com, where you can also find links to podcasts of previous shows. And let us hear from you. Tweet us at hashtag WMCLive or email us at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. I really want to hear from you. Today, Shazia Rafi takes us on a virtual trip to Pakistan, just before the controversial elections. Kathleen Hanna, punk singer, songwriter, and multimedia artist, tells us all about Riot Grrrls. And novelist and former columnist Anna Quindlen talks about journalism, families, and close women friends in a special two-segment conversation. But first, we have to go inside the headlines. The headlines this week constituted for me an obituary. On April 26th, Mary Thom, the editor-in-chief of the Women's Media Center website Features, was killed in a motorcycle accident just outside New York City. Those of us who knew her for decades, back to the Ms. days, Ms. Magazine, and who also find ourselves better known to the press, have been asked for and have given quotes about this loss. And I will devote fighting words at the end of this program to some of my personal feelings about it. But the people who most recently were working with Mary day to day as a collegial family are the women of the Women's Media Center, and their voices are even more important. And they hadn't been asked to date. So I'm opening this section for their comments. This has all been so sudden that we've lacked the time to record them in their own voices, but I'll read what are their own words that they've kindly written for me to read. Saida Zelaya, the assistant to the president. Having only joined the Women's Media Center a couple of months ago, I've already had the pleasure of working alongside exceptionally talented women, and Mary Thom was one of them. I first met Mary at WMC's staff retreat early in March, and she was just as pleasant and innovative as everyone on staff had informed me. I was most impressed by her genuine sense of character. She kept it real, and any woman who can be true to herself and others makes them an unforgettable character in my book. I'm truly going to miss her morning emails letting everyone on staff know about WMC's daily features. Michelle Lent Hirsch, the associate editor of the Women Under Siege project. On meeting Mary for the first time, I could tell that she exuded a kind of history and strength. Rachel Laris, the communications manager of the Women's Media Center. Mary and I were both members of a journalism and women's symposium, JAWS. Mary was a long-time member, and they always have an annual retreat. I've been a member for 6 years or so, and I've never gone to this retreat, but I was definitely planning on going for the first time this year. And it can be intimidating to go to something like this. You can feel that everyone already knows each other because they've been going for years. But I thought, well, at least I'll see Mary there, and that'll be one friendly face in the group. Plus, I don't get to see Mary all that often, so it was something to look forward to. But it was when this same group started sharing memories online of Mary from this retreat, which is where many of them first met her, that I realized, oh, Mary's not going to be there this year. It just hit me so strongly that she was gone. The women on the JAWS list really, truly liked Mary, even the ones who would just see her once a year at this retreat. She made an impact. Kate McCarthy, director of SheSource. Mary, our editor-in-chief extraordinaire, ran the features section of the Women's Media Center. In January 2012, we updated our website and moved all the hundreds of features that Mary had commissioned, edited, and published from our old broken system to our shiny new website. The changeover was messy. It required many late nights and back-and-forth emails. It required Mary learning a completely new system, bulk email, content management, comment posting, and more, posting on Joule sites for a while, and not once did she moan, complain, or say it was too much. Not once did a feature not go out. She was calm, gracious, detail-focused, and absolutely dedicated to ensuring our writers were respected and the features were the very best they could be. The features section of our website is its heart. It's where women's voices are heard and women's stories are told, and it's all Mary's doing. We miss her massively, both professionally and personally, and will for many, many years to come. Michelle Kinsey-Bruns, online manager for the Women's Media Center and technical director for Women's Media Center Live. Mary wasn't the sort of person to draw attention to herself, and I never saw her do anything you could call pulling rank. But her editorial judgment carried such authority that there was little disagreement at the Women's Media Center when she argued for or against an idea. It was always a relief to me when Mary would articulate a concern that I privately, silently shared. Working for an organization built from the ground up by brilliant, passionate, world-changing, and very opinionated women can induce a certain hesitance to tell any of them that they're wrong about something. Even at radio show editorial meetings, even with Robin, even when critiques were invited and urged. But Mary didn't hesitate, and amazingly to me, she was rarely met with much resistance. It isn't that she delivered such judgments in a harsh way, she didn't, or that she was impossible to please, she wasn't. Rather, I suspect, it's that all the previous years of Mary and Robin working together at Ms. and in the movement had taught Robin, and now taught us at the Women's Media Center, that Mary's critiques were usually right. Crystal Williams Chancellor, Media Relations Manager and Senior Producer, Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. As part of the radio show team, Mary wore her usual editor hat, offering constructive critiques, suggestions, and feedback, but she also was one of the show's chief supporters. "Congratulations, Robin and crew, you folks actually pulled it off. Love, Mary," she said in an email after the show's successful launch last year on Women's Equality Day. "Brava and bravi," she wrote, after a September show featuring a stellar lineup of guests and commentaries. She was vacationing in France when our first show aired on CBS. "You sound très bien from France as well. Love, Mary," she exclaimed in a midnight email. And after a run of especially good shows, "Can you all keep it up?" she quipped. Robin spoke for us all in her reply. "Oh, Mary, I do adore you." And last, from Julie Burton, President of the Women's Media Center and Executive Producer of Women's Media Center Live. "We are shaken and reeling at the sudden passing of our irreplaceable Editor-in-Chief, Mary Thom. Mary was one of the great writers, editors, and visionaries of the women's movement, and the heart and soul of the Women's Media Center's feature writing. From her work in the early days of Ms. right up until this week, hers was a clear, strong voice for equality, and her editorial talents lifted so many other voices as well. Mary, we miss you already." I'll add a few words at the end of this program. But now to our first guest. Shazia Rafi has been, since 1996, Secretary General of Parliamentarians for Global Action, an association of more than 1,350 legislators from 131 parliaments who promote peace, democracy, justice, and sustainable development. Shazia Rafi is also an essayist and a journalist. Welcome, Shazia, to Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I know that recently you went back to Pakistan, I think for a family wedding, was it?
2 family weddings.
2? Oh my God, a double whammy. With your own keen journalist's eye, you observed and reported for the Women's Media Center for womensmediacenter.com as a featured article about what's going on in Pakistan as they rev up toward the elections.
You know, it's a very complicated country, but it's kind of the best of times and the worst of times in the sense that we've just gone through 5 years of a very difficult but still managing to maneuver civilian elected government, which completed its tenure on March 16th, a National Assembly that actually, did not get dissolved, did not fall apart, and was able to hold together between government opposition, working with each other on some very thorny issues, including the operation against the Taliban in Swat in 2009. So
that's a first, isn't it, Shazia?
It's a first in 63 years of the country's history that, we have for the first time a completed term, and we are now going to go for elections on May 11th, inshallah.
See, that's not really understood in the West, I think, that no coup, no violent overthrow, no dissolving of parliament, no military takeover, that this is the first time a civil society term has been actually completed, which is a triumph.
Which is a triumph. And, it is something that's not often understood because there are so many other sort of negatives going on. On the positive side, the other aspect that has happened is that during the same term of Parliament, more bills and acts that relate to women's empowerment have been pushed through by legislators. This was the first assembly that had a woman speaker. This was the first time a women's caucus was created. And at the same time, men and women worked together to pass through some of these bills. So that, in a sense, the legal structure, even if implementation itself, they were not able to get to and may not be able to get to over the next few years so easily, you've got a legal architecture that is there to protect women. Now you actually need the implementation and for women to begin to actually ask for their rights under these laws. So that's another major positive. Now, the negatives are equally daunting. On a natural disaster level, this is the period when you've had the worst floods in history, major earthquake, all kinds of disasters of that nature. But there's a bigger problem on man-made disasters. You've got environmentally, you've got major deforestation and silting leading to continual floods. There's been a dengue epidemic that's been going on for the last 2 years because of probably the combination of floods and climate. And water shortages beginning to show up. On the political side, you've got a situation where, similar to some other countries, it's no particular political grouping or party is coming out with an overwhelming majority. So you've got continued uncertainty and coalition building sorts of situations. And in a certain sense, similar to Italy, the 62nd coalition in Italy is still not finalized. So So there's a lot of turbulence in the politics, and that allows those who don't believe in politics, who don't believe in democracy, who think it's not a system that's worthy, to continually play with the body politic, and to keep, bringing down the politicians, partly by the fact that they aren't, many of them are fallible, are corrupt, have accountability issues. At the same time, the institutions that don't want democracy, and those tend to be on the security sector side.
It's the ISS?
No, the ISI, I think, is a much more nuanced instrument. They tend to favor candidates if they, are going to play with things. But it's, there's always a nervousness in the security sector that if democracy were to really succeed, at some point people will start asking, why is there such a huge defense budget? Why can't we make peace with our neighbors? Why can't we go down that road,
I see. Good questions.
Good questions. And that is what happened in Nawaz Sharif's previous term, when, in one of his previous terms, when, India had just shot off their nuclear test and Pakistan was under enormous pressure to do so. And he tried, to his credit, to resist it by even putting it in a very blunt way to the population. Do you want a 6-lane highway going from north to south, or do you want the bomb?
Right.
Which was a very clear way of saying these are your choices.
Right.
But I think at the same time, what is playing into the hands of the same sort of naysayers on the Democratic front is that this continued war on terrorism flowing out of Afghanistan is allowing the situation to, one, become so chaotic that the secular left parties are not able to actually campaign. The most secular socialist party is in the Pashtun area, and it's the governing party there right now.
I didn't realize it was placed there.
It's placed there. That is the party that is the Red Caps, the communists, the socialists, and they are the ones who are losing candidates to murder every week.
Shazia,
who just killed.
Shazia, we hear so much about the violence coming out, and we know that the women have no power really in the political arena. We're just beginning to get our own visibility, as you say. In an ideal situation, what is to be done? What should this country, for example, be doing that would help change the situation for the better in Pakistan?
I mean, there's many threads to this, but if you look at sort of historical comparison to what this country was able to do in Europe or what this country was able to do in other regions of the world, the kind of terrorism and movements that we are dealing with are sort of similar to fascism. Whether it's the Taliban or whether it's even more violent offshoots like Al-Qaeda, who are terrorists.
You mean something like the Marshall Plan after World War II?
Well, I don't think anybody's economy is in the position to be able to pull out the kind of money that, the U.S. did for Europe at that time. But I think what the U.S. can encourage is that there needs to be a lot more regional cooperation between India, Pakistan, Iran, unfortunately, and the Gulf countries to be able to actually encourage the more stable, moderate elements of the societies to flourish and to be able to build on their own regional trade and resources. Because, I mean, one of the things in Pakistan right now is a terrible energy crisis. People don't have gas to be able to even cook one meal in the day. And under those circumstances, for the government all these years to say, no, we will not go ahead with an Iran pipeline just makes no sense to the local population. May I say one last word?
Yes.
I think one of the things to absolutely avoid at this point is this notion that we are leaving and therefore we must recognize the Taliban as a legitimate player. Just because you are leaving does not mean that those who you leave to fight now, the political fight, need to be crippled further by taking the equivalent of the Nazi party and saying they belong on the table with you.
Thank you so much for being here and being with us and talking to us on Women's Media Center Live. Thank you, Shazia.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take a short break here. You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan, who happens to be me. We'll be back with Kathleen Hanna, who can tell us what it was like to be regarded as the leader of the leaderless Riot Grrrl movement in the 1990s. After Hurricane Sandy, parts of the East Coast have returned to normal, but others won't see normal again for quite some time. One group getting volunteers and aid supplies to those who need it is called Occupy Sandy, made up of a coalition of Occupy Wall Street activists, community organizers, and technologists. Occupy Sandy is using social media and other software tools to identify and quickly respond to urgent needs among the hardest-hit communities. You can help. To donate or to volunteer, visit occupysandy.org.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
Welcome back. Our next guest is a feminist, punk, multimedia artist, songwriter, singer, performer, activist, recording artist, writer of zines, books, and a comedy series. I could go on, but you get the point. And believe me, so does she, Kathleen Hanna. Welcome, Kathleen, to Women's Media Center Live.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so good to reconnect with you. Yours is the name most associated still with Riot Grrrls, and Riot Grrrls is now coming out with a book with Feminist Press called the Riot Grrrl Collection. And it's edited with an introduction by Lisa Darms and with original essay by Joanna Failman, but you are one of the people who made a contribution to it. Talk a little bit about what you know about the book.
Well, I have looked at it. I think it's really fantastic. It's kind of admitting to the fact that any herstory is always subjective. And so it's more a snapshot than, this is what Riot Grrrl was. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of ephemera from the movement, notes people wrote to each other, letters people wrote to each other, flyers, various essays from fanzines, things like that. And I'm really proud of it because it looks really beautiful too. It's graphically, the sensibility is amazing, and the introductions are really great. Lisa actually Darms, who set up the archive, the Riot Grrrl archive at Fales, used to be a roommate of mine back in Olympia, Washington.
Really?
Yeah, and Johanna was also my roommate and my bandmate. So we're all friends, and she's actually one of the reasons why the archive even happened was because, I don't trust very many people. And we had been joking around at a panel discussion before she got the job at NYU Fales. And I was like, they're talking about archives and archiving, which we're both very interested in. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I was like, they should take my archive. I'm sick of carrying this stuff around. It's all in my basement.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, she got offered the job at Fales.
Oh, that was...
called me up and said, let's do it.
That was serendipitous. That was a good piece of timing, yeah. It's a beautiful book, you're right. And it's caught somehow the energy of Riot Grrrls, of the movement, and the pace and the time and the beauty, the outrageousness, and the real political content, too, which was dismissed by some at the time and no longer should be. And it comes out in June, and it is fittingly, with the Feminist Press. You've done so many things that we could spend an hour just on Kathleen Hanna, Bikini Kill, and of course the association with Riot Grrrls. But you're now. When I last was really in touch with you, you were mostly, not totally, but mostly a musician, and you have branched out. You're a multimedia artist, Renaissance woman thing.
Yeah, I've actually. Well, in my band after Bikini Kill Le Tigre, I did a lot of visuals and videos, and I learned how to program drum machines, and ended up writing songs for people like Christina Aguilera. And a movie was recently made about me called The Punk Singer that's coming out. I'm in a new band, and I just wrote a comedy series that we're trying to get the pilot made.
Gee, I have the most lazy women on as guests. Really, women should get their act together. This slothfulness has got to end. To say a word or two about the movie again, when does it come out?
The movie is called The Punk Singer, and right now, I guess they're looking for distribution.
Okay.
I've watched it, but it's really hard to watch myself.
Yes, but we're not yourself, and we want to watch it.
It's showing, I think, tonight in Toronto at the film festival. And they're just showing it in really select cities right now and trying to get distribution. So once it gets distribution, then everybody can get DVDs and hopefully downloads
right.
all that kind of stuff.
Well,
but it's
ahead.
my story. It's my story, and it's weird because, you know, I'm 44.
You're kidding.
And
how can you be 44?
I'm 44.
That makes me feel really old. You can't.
Everything makes me feel really old.
Oh, God. When it gets distribution, or even where it's showing now, people can check your website, right? KathleenHanna.com.
Definitely.
And it will be posted.
Definitely.
Okay, this is good. And Julie Ruin, which is the not so new, but new, the current band, right?
Yeah, I did a solo project after Bikini Kill called Julie Ruin, and I actually met you somewhere around the Julie Ruin Le Tigre time when I was really confused because Riot Grrrl had gone awry with what I call like identity politics on steroids. Yeah. It was just like oppression Olympics orama. It was really bad. And I felt really politically depressed. And that project, doing this solo record and just being like, look, I'm just going to make something about my feelings and what I'm going through. I'm not going to try to write feminist anthems on this record.
Right.
And it ended up being really personal and being a really important record for me because I kind of took back my identity. Mm-hmm. And I am doing that again. I basically took the same kind of concepts and projects or ideas, and I brought them to these amazing people who I care about, who are amazing musicians, and we're working together. And it's been fantastic. We just finished the record. It's coming out in September.
What's it called?
It's called Run Fast. The Julie Ruin Run Fast.
Wow. I remember that we had conversations about that and about where do you draw the line between your responsibility as an artist and to yourself as an artist and to your work and your political passion, and that the latter could eat the former alive. And I remember we talked about how ultimately your best contribution is as an artist, because you can stand on a street corner and leaflet with rhetoric or jargon for 55 years and it doesn't reach people the way and with the passionate contagion that art does. So in a sense, if you dare to be, quote, selfish and get your own work done, it's not only right for yourself, but it is a political contribution. You know,
exactly, and
you're a woman too.
Yeah, and you have more, I feel, longevity that way. If you do something that you're totally passionate about and that you love to do, and you mix it with your political ideology, you're going to have a longer shelf life.
That's right.
You're just going to be able to keep doing it and keep doing it. Whereas if you're just trying to toe the party line and make everybody happy, in a way, I feel like you're just supporting the feminine construct of like, I'm being nice.
That's right.
Being nice.
That's right. And you can never make everybody happy anyway. And party lines are boring. So they really are. So I always think you reach the universal through the specific. So if you're specific, dare to be specific about where you are in your own life as an artist, women will identify with that.
Thank you.
What else are you doing?
I wrote a comedy series called Bridget Drives the Bus.
Oh.
And it's based on this cabaret artist who's a good friend of mine, Bridget Everett. And the first time I saw her, I was just mesmerized. And I started following her like how people talk about following the Grateful Dead. I just went to every show, and she just has this really intense stage presence where she can flash from, the voice of an angel to just the biggest dysfunctional mess.
Wow.
And I think she's a character that women need to see, and I want to see her on TV. And so I just sat down and started writing a series for her, and I couldn't stop. And now we have a production company, and we're
wow.
a pilot.
Oh,
yeah, and it's great because I just feel like I can do different things. I don't have to stick with music or
No.
or whatever. And I feel like it's so great to be able to support someone else's art too, because I really, really enjoy the process of being behind the scenes as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like it kind of balances out the being on stage part of me.
Wow.
Because I enjoy, I don't feel squashed by being behind the scenes. I feel invigorated.
Wow. You are exploding and in creativity more and more and more. It's lovely. It's just lovely. So we're going to get together and make up for lost time. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for being on Women's Media Center Live and for being in the Riot Grrrl collection, which is coming out in June with the Feminist Press.
Thank you.
Time for another short pause. This is Robin Morgan here with Women's Media Center Live. We'll return with a 2-segment conversation with Anna Quindlen, the novelist and journalist who makes you feel you're chatting at the kitchen table with a girlfriend.
When it comes to talk radio, men still do most of the talking. It doesn't get too much better if you look at television, newspapers, film, video games, social media, literature, sports, and corporate or technology leadership. The Women's Media Center's Status of Women in the U.S. Media 2013 report details the persistent gender disparity in a range of media institutions that rank among the greatest influencers in American society. To read the full report, go to womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
And we're back. I could go on and on about Anna Quindlen, but I will just say that she was a columnist at the New York Times and won a Pulitzer Prize, that her books have almost all of them become bestsellers and won gazillion prizes, that she was the paper's, New York Times, deputy metropolitan editor, and that when she left the world of newspapers to become a full-time novelist, those of us who write fiction celebrate it. She is a lovely, lovely writer in all forms and a real pal. Welcome, Anna, to Women's Media Center Live.
Thanks, Robin. It's so good to be with you.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. This is real fun. Let's start right in about the book, the memoir, Lots of Candles, Plenty of Cake, which is newly out in paperback, right?
Correct.
Oh, listen, I'm so glad you did the show. You're doing the show because it gave me an excuse to read the book all over again. It makes me grin. It tears me up. It's a beautiful book. You're a silver-tongued writer.
Well, thank you, but one of the most resonant quotes in it is from you, the quote that readers keep quoting back to me about how, parts of myself that I didn't even know I had hurt, but other parts of myself I didn't even know I had sing. And it's really true. The whole point of the book is that you discover parts of your mind, of your body, of your soul, of your life that you either didn't notice or didn't pay proper attention to when you were younger, that suddenly you embraced.
Yeah. Well, it's the parts about aging are it's wise without ever being pretentious. I mean, here's what you are. You're everybody's dream of a perfect girlfriend, even on the page, and in real life too. I'm not knocking real life, but on the page there's something about that voice that is your perfect girlfriend, even in that she is decidedly imperfect.
Well, and one of the things that I think I wrote about most feelingly in the book is girlfriends.
Yes.
Because one of the reasons why I think women do so much better with the aging process than their male counterparts tend to do is because we have all these girlfriends to count on.
Yes.
I mean, you have and I have so many people that if things are going awry, we can call and pour out our hearts to. And unfortunately, although I think it's getting better, as the mother of sons, I sometimes worry that, that men don't have those same relationships with other men that we have with other women, and that are such solace as we get older.
That's right. And I'm, of course, the mother of a son, too. That's always one of our bonds. And I see that he has developed. Now he's in his 40s. I don't know how that happened. Last week he was 8. But he has developed lifelong friendships with other guys who are tender and loving. I mean, it's the beginning of something approaching women, but it's nowhere near there yet. And with women, do you know that there are new studies that show that having girlfriends for a woman literally lengthens her life?
I have no doubt about that. I just don't understand how you could get by without them. I mean, literally, as I say in the book, I talk to my closest friend almost every single day in the morning. Mm-hmm. And, it's not like we have so much to talk about. It's just that it's a touchstone. It's like swimming back to the buoy. You know that you're not going to drown because at 9:00 Janet's on the other end of the phone.
I think it was Jane who was asked, Fonda, which of your husbands, or men in general, would you take to a desert island? And she instantly responded, "Oh, none of them. I'd take my girlfriends."
Don't you think that's true of all of us, though?
Yes.
I mean, I have this group of women that I travel with, and over the years, we've come up with this idea for the home. And the home consists of one of our country houses. We haven't decided which one yet. These are actually prosperous girl problems. We all move into the house. We hire nurses and people to cook and stuff like that. And then we sit out on the front porch and talk about people. And as one of the members of the travel group keeps saying, the great thing is we can keep telling each other the same stories over and over again because we won't remember.
Yes. Well, I have a group of women friends whom I meet once a month for dinner with, and we've been doing this for like 35 years. And we've now reached the stage where we all know who we're talking with, even though none of us can remember her name. So we access it by the alphabet, which so far none of us has lost. So it'll go like this. One of us will say, you know, her name began with an M, and I can't remember the rest of it. And somebody else will say, oh yeah, and she was tall, and she was married to that guy who, and then somebody else said, oh yeah, he was a bummer. And didn't they live for a while in the Midwest? And we've pieced together the narrative, but we still don't have that. We all know exactly who it is, and it takes another 15 minutes, and then somebody shouts out the name. And it's like better than having an orgasm. It's a joint orgasm. We've got the name. We've got it.
One of my friends sent me one of those internet things about a group of girls who start as little girls going to the same restaurant once a year. And they start out because it's near the Dairy Queen, and then they keep going because all the cute guys go there, and then they keep going because children under 12 aren't allowed, and then there's a special senior citizens discount. And by the last decade they're doing it, they go because they've never been there before. That's where we wind up.
That's a gem, an absolute gem. Well, there's so many more in the book because there's stuff on marriage, there's stuff on motherhood that is hilarious, there's stuff on daughterhood, on your career as a journalist and a columnist. I mean, there's a really very intimate tone. It's not like I am a memoir or I am an autobiography. It's like, so we're sitting at the kitchen table and you want some more coffee, or is that giving you indigestion? Shall we go for the decaf tea? And we're talking. Well,
that's the greatest compliment you could give me, because I think that the problem with public discourse in this country is that there's too little kitchen table talk.
Yeah.
I mean, whether politicians are talking about gun control or the economy or abortion or health care, the great disconnect in this country is that we all sit there and say, okay, we've talked about all these issues at our kitchen table, and what we say doesn't sound anything like what they're saying.
That's true. That's true. They're two utterly different forms. And there's even almost an acknowledgement now in politics, and to some extent, I think, among our colleagues in the media, that there's the onstage talk, and it has nothing to do with the real life talk of real people. The follow-up question has almost disappeared.
Also, the current crop of political leaders are a beat behind what's happening with social media. So I mean, we can trash Facebook and Twitter all we want, and I don't tweet, and I do Facebook under pressure from my publisher. I write something about once a week. But the truth is, if you're a political figure and you want to try to get a handle on some of what's in the air out there, you can read the comments section on stories in the New York Times and the New York Post, and you can follow Twitter and see what people are really thinking. They have a kind of an unparalleled opportunity to keep track of what's going on in the national psyche. But I think we've got a group of elected officials who are one beat away from understanding that.
I think you're absolutely right. And I also think we need to take a break here, and then we're going to come back and talk, if you don't mind, a little bit about journalism and women and politics and all those things.
Sounds great.
This is Women's Media Center Live, and I'm still Robin Morgan, and we will be right back with more Anna Quindlen in just a moment.
Want to stay informed when there are changes to Social Security? Subscribe to receive automatic email updates on popular Social Security web pages with the click of a button. Just visit www.socialsecurity.gov/GOV delivery. More than 1 million people already receive updates to the pages they're most interested in. You can too. Look for the red envelope followed by a link that says Get Email Updates. To learn more, visit www.socialsecurity.gov/GOV delivery. Social Security delivers.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.
And we are back again with writer Anna Quindlen. Anna, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it yet. It's probably not. It's just newly out. But the Women's Media Center Status of Women in the U.S. Media 2013 report is just out. And Gail did the show, Gail Collins, and so did Geneva Overholser. And I was sharing some of the stats with them, and we were all trying to find some bright news in there without getting too psychotically depressed. But basically it boils down to, at its current pace, it'll take until 2085 for us to reach parity with men in leadership roles in government, politics, business, and entrepreneurship and nonprofits and media. And that covers, then there's all sorts of, stats. The one thing that I resent, while I celebrate you as a novelist and book writer, is that you're not a columnist anymore. Consequently, my days are grimmer. But you've been a columnist and a reporter, and what is your take on where we are and what we need to do to push the envelope more?
Well, let me try to take the half full
point
of view, which is my tendency. When I was on the op-ed page of the New York Times, I was the only woman on the op-ed page. In fact, there hadn't been a woman for some years since Flora Lewis had retired. I was the third woman to get an op-ed page column at the Times, and I was the youngest person. So I had to carry a lot of water, and I was happy to carry it. Feminist concerns and reproductive rights and the rights of the poor and the disenfranchised are the things that have always interested me most anyhow, and I was the most inclined probably of any of my colleagues to write about them. Today, there are 2 women on the op-ed page of the New York Times. Is that enough? Not even close. But it's better than one. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the executive editor of the New York Times is Jill Abramson, something that really would have been
unheard of
when I first started at the paper, as, by the way, a beneficiary of the class action suit brought by women at the New York Times, charging that they weren't hired, promoted, or paid in parity with men. But, being in certain places in journalism is a plum. And the closer you get to the plums, the fewer of us there are.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a reporter at a small daily in Nebraska, your chances as a woman are better than if you want to be the executive producer of World News Tonight on ABC. And one of the things that I felt very strongly about as a woman reporter, editor, and columnist is if you're in a position of power, influence, and job security, you almost have a moral obligation to bring other women along.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was deputy metro editor of the Times, which astonishingly enough made me at the time the highest ranking woman at the paper, I hired, I think, 7 women in 2 years. One guy.
Wow.
Someone said to me, "You only hire women." I said, "I'm redressing the injuries of centuries."
Right.
And I sort of believe in that, whether it's meeting with some young woman who wants advice about getting in the business, whether it's hiring, whether it's sponsoring somebody's career and trying to push and pull them along. I sort of feel like you have the obligation to do that. And I know there are a lot of women in a variety of businesses who don't agree with that. They're either really invested in moving their own career along, or they think they should appear to be gender blind.
Right.
I'll be gender blind when we have an even playing field, and I don't see that happening during my lifetime.
Right. Yeah, I mean, both Gail and Geneva said two interesting and related but different things in response to these stats, and I wonder what you think of it. Gail was pointing out that the news cycle itself technologically has changed and is so rapid that women don't get in there necessarily reporting as fast and at the same pace or writing letters to the editor, and that in a sense we're punished for being thoughtful. That men tend to think, well, I don't know anything about that subject, but by God, that doesn't keep me from opining on it. Whereas women actually think, well, wait a minute, let me think about this. And Geneva said something related in that she said the one area we could control, which is letters to the editor, not enough women write them.
Well, I think that's probably true, and those are both interesting observations. You know, Sheryl Sandberg has made a very interesting observation that really made a big, really had a big effect on me. At lunch one day, I said to her, "Okay, so what can we do to move women forward in the world?" And I'm expecting that she'll have some sort of general idea, and she says, "Teach women to code." I said, What? She said, computer coding. If you look in the next 50 years, the jobs that are going to pay the best and are going to offer the best opportunities for promotion are computer coding jobs, and not enough women are doing coding. And I thought, in a million years, I would never have thought of that.
Right,
and of course, she's actually hands-on involved in that.
Right.
So I think sometimes what we need to do is look to the next 50 years and say, okay, what are the journalism jobs that are really going to get significant traction? And how can we get more women to involve themselves in those jobs?
Right. Well, it took us 100 years to catch up to the Industrial Revolution. And if we don't move fast and deliberate on the information revolution, I don't think we'll ever be able to catch up. Because the sexism is online as well.
I know, but I still tend to feel overwhelmingly optimistic only because the life that my daughter envisions for herself, she's 24, the life that she envisions for herself and the possibilities that she sees all around her are completely and utterly different than those that I envisioned for myself.
And her expectations and her entitlements, too. Her sense, which is great.
Absolutely. That sense of like, well, of course I can. I mean, it's in the book, and it just had such a huge impact on me. The night that we were watching the news together 4 or 5 years ago, and she turned to me and without a hint of irony or guile said to me, "Mom, has a man ever been Secretary of State?" It just blew me out of the water because, of course, during her lifetime, it had been Condi Rice,
Albright,
Madeleine Albright. There had been that brief Colin Powell interregnum, and then Hillary Clinton.
That's right. Yeah. That's a very different world and atmosphere, and to having you as a mother, wow, that's a very different world and atmosphere than any of us grew up with. No, I'm positive too. I'm just that statistics always bring me down. Lies, and damn statistics.
I know the data can be disconcerting, and I still go back to that, White House Project study that showed over and over again that there's this leadership lid.
Mm-hmm.
That, you look at the top ranks of even nonprofits, but of higher education, of Wall Street, of
right.
the law, of medicine, and you're talking somewhere between 12 and 20%, even
right.
though, in the past we always used to talk about that damn pipeline problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the pipeline's open now, and
yep.
yet we're still not floating to the top.
Well, yeah, but the good news is, and I don't mean to imply that just because the stats can be sobering that we shouldn't get them. We've got to know what the reality that we're up against is. But the good news also is that the myth that younger women weren't interested in feminism has been blown to smithereens, if for no other reason than you can always count on the right wing and the fundamentalists to go after basics like contraception. So there's this whole new radicalized, what do you mean, take away my birth control, and new energy among younger women. And a lot of the activism is online. So that sometimes older feminists who wring their hands don't understand where it is. But all I know is I'm in touch with a whole lot of younger women and men who are moving in all the right directions and are carrying it on in their own way with their own stamp.
I think it's a mistake for us to do the hand-wringing, they're not doing it the way we did it, and therefore they're not doing it approach.
Yeah. Why should they?
I think young women, they're coming from a completely different place, but a lot of them are coming out of that place really full of themselves and really refusing to take any guff, and I love that about them.
Yeah. Well, we're beginning to near the end of our conversation, which could go on for decades, as it has. But a couple of things I want to ask before we close. One is something that I have asked women all around the world and had some very interesting answers on. It's a two-parter. One, if you had to say what your greatest either regret, or if you have no regrets, your greatest sadness was, either in your personal life or career life, what would that be? And comparably, if you would ask, what would your greatest joy or pride be?
I haven't had a whole lot of regrets in my life.
I didn't think so.
I think growing up as a motherless daughter has been extremely challenging.
Yeah.
And given how the world has changed for the better, I'm quite sad about the fact that my mother isn't around to see either that or her grandchildren. But because of a combination of the work that women did before I even showed up, and some accidents of timing, and frankly, my own abilities and inclinations, I have felt for such a long time that if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, my last thought would be, wow, I've had a lucky life. In terms of the greatest joy, I'm a woman who felt, both because of my politics and because of my personal life as a motherless daughter, that the last thing I ever wanted to do was raise kids. And boy, was I wrong about that. Not only because it's been more fun than anything, and I now have 3 phenomenal adults to hang around with, but because, frankly, it enabled me to re-experience the small moments of life in a way that is only for the good for a writer.
You're absolutely right. Oh, Anna. Listen, listeners, this book, Lots of Candles, Plenty of Cake, if you haven't read it, read it. If you have read it, reread it. Let me put it this way. It would be a guilty pleasure, because it's so much fun and such a delight. It would be a guilty pleasure if it were bad for you. But actually, it's even good for you. It's sane making and joy making, and so are you. And I'm so grateful you were with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Well, thanks, Robin, and thanks for everything you've done for women over all these decades.
Well, you too, and keep writing. On to the next one.
Thanks.
And now it's time for our fighting words. A few words about Mary Thom. We first met in the early 1970s through Ms. Magazine, and for decades we worked together as colleagues doing privileged work that we cared a lot about. Mary was also, in addition to being an editor, the Ms. historian. She was trained as an historian, and she did the history of Ms., that book, and she edited the letters to Ms., and with Suzanne Braun-Levine, she co-edited Bella Abzug, An Oral History. Those were some of her books. In 1990, when I became editor-in-chief of the magazine, I asked Mary to become my executive editor, and she did, and was the rock on which the magazine persisted. When I was assembling Sisterhood is Forever, my anthology, the third of the Sisterhood anthologies, I asked Mary to do a series of interviews with certain writers, with certain contributors who wanted to be part of the book but were unable or unwilling to write the pieces themselves. And then came the Women's Media Center. In her own words, Mary described what she has done as editor of the Women's Media Center. It's episode 29 of this program, and you can find it on WMClive.com in the archives as a podcast. And her latest work, which she was editing at the time of her death, is Unspinning the Spin by Rosalie Maggio, a book about words and verbal karate, which will be out still this fall. We've decided to create an award in Mary's name at the Women's Media Center. It will be the Mary Thom Art of Editing Award to honor editing in all forms of media, since it's an overlooked art. A first-rate editor practices a craft that demands great skill and doesn't impose external meaning on a work, but elicits the content and the creator's voice all the more clearly. Mary did this and more. For Ms., and in recent years for the WMC, she conceived stories. She managed to find just the right author to assign. She developed the story. She nagged until it was delivered and then edited it, fact-checked it, had the editing approved by the author, which is not a common courtesy, and fought for the piece's proper treatment and placement. She did this for 856 features for the Women's Media Center, and we're proud to establish that award in her honor. Personally speaking, so many stories about this wry, unsentimental, smart, practical woman who loved words and politics and mystery fiction, who loved her newly renovated kitchen and adored her baby niece, who loved gourmet cooking, and who used to josh me that my anti-ritual of saying, "This is still Robin Morgan," whenever I had to re-identify myself at the breaks for this program. Well, I asked her, is it over the top? No, she said, you have to keep it because it is funny and it pokes fun at the notion of the ID ritual. The truth is, I'm not still Robin Morgan. A piece of me has gone with Mary, a piece of all of us who loved her. We're less than we were. But as fighting words, and because you know that you're not hearing Michelle Bachmann when you turn into this program, and because Mary liked it, I'll keep that ritual. So from here on in, whenever you hear me say, "This is still Robin Morgan," you'll know damn well who I'm thinking about. And now, that's it for this week. You've been listening to us on CBS station 1580 AM radio in Washington, D.C., and on the web at WMClive.com. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President, and for this program, Executive Producer Julie Burton. Senior Producer Crystal Williams Chancellor. Technical Director Michelle Kinsey Bruns. And our founding sponsor, Regina Kulik Scully. I'm still Robin Morgan. Thanks for being with us. Join us next week when activist Holly Curl will report on the growing global campaign against sexual harassment, and we'll observe Mother's Day in our own unique fashion with a mother-daughter love story and with the mothers of the disappeared. Only here on Women's Media Center Live.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 AM, a CBS station.